Hello, can you hear me? Hey, Nancy, can you hear me?
Hey, Matt, it's Nancy. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Would be helpful if I had my headphones in, which is where I can get sound.
Hey, Nancy, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. How are you?
Good, good, how are you?
Good, good. Things are going well so far.
Excellent. So it doesn't look like I can turn my video on. It looks like a setting is disabling me from video.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to PM Expo 2020. We are really proud and happy to have Matt Weirich of Realync presenting today. Best practices for remote leasing, self-guided tours, and avoiding fraudulent applications. So without further ado, Matt, I'll let you get started.
Excellent, thank you so much. Hey, Elaine, good to see you. And looks like everyone is trickling in. So I'll slow roll the start a little bit and let people keep coming in. But super excited about our topic today. A lot of information, a lot of very relevant information for us to cover. So I'll do my best to dive deep, but not too deep. Keep it fun, keep it moving, and leave ample time for Q&A at the end. More than anything, want to make sure that there's plenty of time for you to ask your questions and for us to have an open dialogue and conversation about everything that's going on in this space right now. So I will say I do have my chat open throughout the course of the presentation. And so if there is a relevant question to what I'm talking about at that point in time, please do feel free to chime in the chat window. Otherwise, if you have questions that we can dive into and address at the end, feel free to use the Q&A functionality and we'll make sure to pull that up and run through it together. All right, so what are we going to cover today? Well, a lot, I'll put it that way. Like I said, I'll try to get through things quickly and efficiently, but the key questions we'll be looking at, first and foremost, what are the various approaches and technologies when it comes to virtual leasing? There are a lot of different ways that you can put together a virtual leasing strategy from a technology and approach standpoint. So we'll run through some of those, look at some of the top questions and considerations that you should be asking before you dive into virtual leasing and make the decision on your path forward on that front. And then how can you best utilize virtual leasing now, but also set your team up for a long-term successful strategy around virtual leasing? Some top tips and tricks to streamline and enhance your process. I'm sure most everyone on the call today has had to put something in place so far in 2020. So we'll look at some of the broad sweeping best practices and what people have learned from simply doing it this year. And then that last one, how to prevent fraudulent applications. If you check all of those first 4 boxes, it should lead in to streamlining the last bullet there about fraudulent applications. And that's a big thing about virtual leasing, is making sure that you're doing it right, that you're doing it all tracked and integrated, and having that all-encompassing strategy can really help streamline and prevent some of those fraudulent applications and fraudulent leads, bad leads, all sorts of things like that. So lots of stuff that we're going to dive into, and we're definitely on the clock. So let's dive in. So first and foremost, the approaches, the technologies. This is not an all-encompassing list. So if there's something you're using that's not on this list, wasn't left off for a reason. There's a lot of different things that your teams can do and use when it comes to virtual leasing, because it is such a broad category. I will say, as a caveat to what I define virtual leasing as, it's ultimately that lead to lease part of the process. And so we'll really be focusing on that. Marketing, obviously, rich media is very necessary in marketing today. 3D and 360 video and all of that are great resources for marketing your communities. But ultimately, when it comes to virtual leasing and actually connecting human to human with a prospect to showcase your space, this is really what we're seeing. You've got your 3D and 360 tours, the Matterports, iSpy 360, Google, Insta, Zillow, lots of different options when it comes to 3D and 360 tours. You've got your video category, which encompasses both live video tours like a Realync, a FaceTime, Zoom, Skype, all of that, as well as pre-recorded video tours. Again, Realync, show my property, DIY, lots of options for making video an asset in the lead to lease part of the process. And then self-guided tours as well. Lots of options on this front from Tour24 and Rently, Yardi, RealPage, SmartRent, so many different options. And again, DIY, doing it yourself for self-guided tours. So ultimately, when you're putting together your thoughts, your approach, and your strategy for virtual leasing, it's not going to be just one of these. At the end of the day, one of my favorite quotes that I heard from a property manager actually about a year ago, so it was pre-COVID. I feel like he hit the nail on the head when it came to his approach on virtual leasing. And he said, it's not up to us as property managers and leasing teams to decide what a prospect can or can't do, or does or doesn't want to see. It's up to us to provide the opportunity. And I thought that really summed it up perfectly, that when it comes to virtual leasing, today, it's all about simply providing the options and providing the opportunity for prospective residents to connect with your team, connect with your building, and see the space, no matter how they, as an individual, want to see it. And so as we're diving through, that'll be one of the common themes that we talk about, is the optionality and having that full suite of functionality for your strategic virtual leasing platform. So when you're looking to get started on virtual leasing, if you haven't gotten started, or if you're looking to get started on something more strategic than what you're doing today, there's a lot of key considerations on the front end that will help you really figure out what exactly your property needs to deliver the results that you're looking for. And the first and foremost consideration is your audience. Who is your audience of prospective residents? Are you a student property? Are you going to be connecting with international students? Are you a senior property and going to be connecting with seniors and their families spread across the US and the world? Are you a Class A market rate downtown Chicago property, or a garden style in the suburbs of Indianapolis? All of these considerations around who you're going to be targeting are important, because when it comes to your technology and what you're offering, not everyone's going to be looking for the same experience. Some people may love the 3D options and find them unbelievably engaging and really want that as part of their touring process. And there may be others that get hung up on that, are confused by it, feel like it doesn't really show them exactly what they want to see. And so they may edge more towards the live virtual tour, where they can connect face to face with a real human being to see the space in real time as it stands, and ask their questions and say, hold on, Nancy, can you go show me the view out that window, and go see the view out that window. And so it's going to vary based on your audience, based on your asset type, based on your market. So that's where you really need to start, is what are you hearing from your prospective residents? What are they looking for? And what are you getting asked for the most? Are they asking if you can send them a video of available units? Are they asking if they can just come in and tour on their own? Think about those questions, think about your audience, and use that as the very first guideline on getting started. From there, think about your devices, think about your technology. When it comes to 3D and 360, are you going to purchase the Insta360 device that clips onto your iPhone? Are you going to buy the Matterport 3D camera, or are you just going to outsource and have someone create those 3D experiences for you? Same with video. Do you want to have a video leasing platform like Realync? Do you want the gimbal, the lens, and everything to record and create and post and share those videos on your own? Or would you rather have someone come in and do those videos for you? Or would you rather just do it on your own and record your own video and use your own video editing service? A lot of options when it comes to how to functionally make these strategies happen, and very varying costs along with that. Obviously, if you go the do-it-yourself route, you can pretty much get away with what's always in your purse or pocket, your smartphone. There are so many options on there to create experiences that consumers are going to love seeing and running through. But if you want more professionalism to it, then finding the right platform, the right provider, the right technology and equipment is going to be necessary as well. So that's really where you start looking at the costs involved with it. Finally, this is huge. Think about your goals before you dive into any virtual leasing effort. If you make the decision that our community is going to offer self-guided tours solely because it's what you hear the industry is doing, and you feel like you're missing out if you don't offer those, that may not be a recipe for success. I would go back to bullet number 1 and take a hard look. Is your audience actually looking for a self-guided experience? Are they asking for a self-guided experience? If the answer is yes, then figure out your goals. What % of your prospective residents do you want going through a self-guided experience? What is your goal conversion rate out of your self-guided leads, tours? And same with 3D and video and all of that. What are your goals? If you want to use video at your community in the leasing process, do you want videos of every floor plan and amenity and you're good with that coverage? Or do you want a video of every single unit? Very different strategies with different involvement and different efforts related to them. And so think about your goals, think about that end state that you want to get to, and start with the end goal in mind, and you'll find that you'll very quickly track towards that if you are goal oriented and goal aligned. And the final piece before getting started, think about your integrations. I saw someone mentioned Entrada and Entrada's self-guided tour platform. This is the big one. Yardi, RealPage, Entrada, Anyone Home, Knock, whatever systems and platforms your team is spending the most amount of time in, your virtual leasing efforts, your 3D, 360, video, self-guided tours, all of those should integrate into your platform. If you leave an opportunity for data not to make it into your lead management system, if I connect with someone and do a live video tour, but I don't log that as an activity on the guest card, that's missed data. And that's all important on not only logging all those activities and showing those success metrics, again, goal-oriented, but it's also important for tracking people through the process. And it's important to be able to show an ROI of your efforts. If you just go into these virtual leasing efforts and put all these things together, but you can't prove the effectiveness of them, then that's going to be really difficult long-term to keep that as a defined strategy in your process. So protect your investment, protect your team, and make sure that everything's integrated, everything's tracked, and built for multifamily. All right, I know I'm going fast. I appreciate you all sticking with me. We're 30 some people on the call now. So welcome everyone. If you missed my intro, again, Matt Weirich, co-founder, CEO of Realync, excited to be walking through this with you. So, okay, the how. So we started with some of the what when it comes to virtual leasings, what platforms and what options you have. Ran through some of those initial considerations. So now the nuts and bolts, what are the key strategies and the how for all of these individually, but all of these collectively? So that's one of the biggest things. You don't have to just use self-guided tours or just use 3D and 360 tours. Video, 3D, Self-guided tours, it can all collectively work together to be an all-encompassing virtual leasing strategy for your team and for your community, and actually save you a lot of time, energy, hassle in the leasing process. And so the how behind this, first and foremost, should not add more work to your team. It may during the onboarding process, it may during the initial phases of getting this off the ground and running, but once all of these systems and processes are firmly integrated into your processes, they should actually make your leasing process more effective, aka higher lead to lease conversion rates, and more efficient. It should take less time to actually engage with prospective residents. These strategies should decrease repeat showings and increase your effectiveness of follow-up, of conversion, all sorts of things. So all that being said, when it comes to how to use these and key considerations, let's start with 3D and 360. We can just go left to right through this list. So most communities today, they have 3D and or 360 tours. Typically, you'll see it of just a model or maybe a couple floor plans. And so one of the biggest considerations here with your 3D tours is think about the why. Think about how you're using it in the process. Is your 3D tour meant to sit on the website and be a great rich media tool to get people engaged and get them to take an action and submit their information? Great. If so, call it that. And if that is your strategy behind 3D and 360, using it as a lead generation marketing tool, then there's a lot more emphasis put on video and self-guided tours in that lead to lease part of the process. 3D tours are great at getting people engaged, getting people interested, but when you actually take that step into the leasing part of the process, that lead to lease part, with your 3D tours and 360 tours, make sure you have the coverage to be able to send someone a link to exactly what they would be looking at. Sending them a link to your 3-bedroom unit, but they're leasing a studio, won't really work too well for giving them a taste of what they're going to be living in. And so with 3D and 360, make sure you have that coverage. And that can be a bit of a lofty investment from time and money to get that coverage. But that is one of the first things that we see with consumer feedback is I wasn't able to see what I wanted to see. And that's one of the big things today is consumers are savvy. They're used to being able to see what they want to see online, whether it's cars, clothes, even houses, and things like that. And so make sure you have the coverage, make sure it's integrated, and make sure it's tracked. And so if I'm sending you a 3D link to a floor plan that fits your needs, I, the leasing agent, will need to know if you're actually clicking that, if you're actually engaging with it. And so make sure everything's integrated, make sure it's tracked, and that you are having the coverage necessary to actually show people what they want to see. The next tick over on video, same MO. If you're using video on your website to give people an overview of the property, that's great. Very different strategy from active lead to lease part of the process. So that probably won't be the last time I say that, of keeping marketing and leasing separate in terms of the mindset around these rich media and touring platforms. But when it comes to video leasing, a lot of strategies that go into it. This is our wheelhouse at Realync. Realync is a video leasing and resident engagement solution. We offer both live video tours and pre-recorded video tours, all do it yourself using just a smartphone or tablet. So when it comes to video, lots of different strategies. If you only focus on pre-recorded video, again, much like the 3D and 360, have the coverage, at a minimum coverage, have every floor plan and every amenity captured. And with that, have it cloud-based. Make sure that, I really forgot I have a slide for this actually. Yeah, there we go. Make sure that you have that library and make sure that it's cloud-based. Sending someone a 30 megabit video file is not going to work very well. And we all have experienced that of trying to send a video to someone and the text fails and it just won't go through. and having to upload it to Dropbox and then send a link to Dropbox, but the person doesn't have the access rights to that Dropbox folder, it can get very convoluted very quickly. So if you are pursuing video as a leasing strategy, make sure that you have your bases covered with a cloud-based library of your videos that is shared by your entire team. Everyone has access to it, and that is instantly shareable via link. That way, no matter what device they're on, Android, iOS, Mac, PC, Google Chrome versus Internet Explorer, that consistency across the experience is going to be very important for making sure that your videos are viewable and that they are a successful leasing strategy for you. And that consistency doesn't just end at the experience with receiving the video tours. If you're doing the recording on your own as a team, be consistent in the video style. And so if you record your 1-bedroom unit and have someone else record the 3-bedroom unit, collaborate. Make sure that you two are recording those units the same way, with the same look, same style, same feel, and all of that, unless you really have a different feel and vibe for your different units. But that consistency in the style of your videos, the professionalism of your videos is all going to be super important in that overall experience for your prospects. And then again, tracking, data and analytics. If I send a prospect 3 different videos of available floor plans or units, I want to know if they're engaging with that. Are they actually viewing it? Did they watch one of those 3 videos more than the other 2? That, as a leasing agent, will help me understand what they may be leaning towards more than the others. So I can actually cater my follow-up to them based on the actions that they are or aren't taking with that content. And then real quick, live video as well. FaceTime, Zoom, Skype, Facebook Live, you name it. Live video has really infiltrated so many different aspects of our lives. And so ultimately, when it comes to live video and the how behind it, it's making it easy for your prospects to join. Don't make them download an app or create an account or have to sign up for something. When it comes to connecting live with them, you want it to be seamless and easy and device agnostic. So one of the big hangups with FaceTime is it's iOS only. Someone with an Android device or a PC won't be able to join a FaceTime tour with you. On top of that, one of the biggest risks and issues that we hear with FaceTime is if you're using your personal device, you're giving that prospect your cell phone number, which is a big no-no in the leasing world. So protect yourself, take care of your prospects, figure out your system and your process for providing live tours and make that consistent across your entire team. Just set an MO. It can be as simple as one meeting and decide, hey, we are all using Zoom. Here's our account, here's the process. Or we're all using Realync, here's how it's integrated, here's how we do it. Or we're all using FaceTime and that's the only live tour offering we're going to use. So figure out your strategy, figure out the how that your team is going to implement it, and then make sure it's tracked. Make sure you are logging all of those as tours. Make sure that it's all in your system and all ticks and ties at the end of the day. Finally, self-guided tours. First and foremost, safety first, especially if you are going do it yourself on your self-guided tour functionality. Make sure that you are checking people in, make sure that you have a route that is set up for safety of your residents. This has always been one of the big conversations around self-guided tours is safety and access. So safety first. These are going to be unmonitored per se, people going through your community unless you have the proper system in place to handle that. So big thing there, think about the safety, think about the system to manage and monitor that process for you. The other 2 experiences, those were virtual. So those are a little easier to digest. These are physical people on site. So a lot of considerations there first and foremost, but beyond that, with your self-guided tours, you need to think about your tour path. If that person was connecting with you as a leasing agent to tour your property, where would you be taking them? What would you be showing them? What would be the talk track while you're walking them through that tour? Try to try to mirror that experience as much as possible with your self-guided experience. Pick the tour path that will show them the biggest variety of units, the most amenities, and show them what they ultimately will want to see. You can't really cater it to each individual, so try to cater it to as many individuals as possible. And try to keep the human element. One thing that we have seen that has proven invaluable with self-guided tours in 2020 is actually adding your team's voice and personal touch throughout the tour experiences. So again, a Realync example of this, we have Realync clients that have created videos of one of the leasing agents in that amenity or in that unit, describing it, talking through some of their differentiated features, the upgraded cabinets, the floor to ceiling windows, and they'll create a plaque or a flyer or a sign that they put in that particular stop on the self-guided tour path with a QR code. I'm sure we've seen QR codes making a huge comeback in 2020 at restaurants for the menus and in all sorts of different aspects of our lives. Invaluable when it comes to your self-guided tours. Create a video with your voice talking through a certain space and just put it on the tour path. Have a sign that says scan me to hear more. And the great thing about that, if you go back to the prior slide about making sure that your videos are tracked, if they scan that QR code and watch that video on that tour stop, if your video is tracked, you'll actually know where they're at on the tour path. So super valuable. You can kill two birds with one stone, get some nice tracking to know where they're at, which videos they viewed. And it's a great way to add your human touch and your voice and your sales pitch to that self-guided tour process. Again, tracking and analytics, tried and true on every single slide. You need to understand the effectiveness of these strategies. So track it, have it integrated into your systems and processes, and use the data to follow up. Most important with self-guided tours is the follow-up. Immediately follow up with each prospect that takes your self-guided tour and provide more answers to their questions, see if they have questions, see if they saw what they needed to see, or if there's anything they weren't able to see that they would want to. So make sure that you're following up immediately with those self-guided tours and keep the throttle down on them because they were physically at your property, and getting back involved in that process is going to be key for the success there. So tips and tricks. One common theme on every single one of those slides: tracking, tracking, tracking. The analytics behind your not self-guided tours, your virtual leasing efforts. I'm not going to say make or break, because you can find success without the tracking, without the analytics. However, when it comes to long-term proof, long-term success, longevity of these efforts, and ultimately being able to know the effectiveness to fine tune, to adjust, to A/B test, to change things like on your videos, instead of showing the kitchen first, maybe we start with the entryway to show what it looks like walking into the unit, and having rich data and analytics to fine tune your approaches, to have option A for your self-guided tours, and then maybe after a month of doing that, switch them up a little bit, change the stops and switch to option B and see how that converts. Really, your virtual leasing efforts should be treated like online demand gen, ad campaigns, any sort of marketing effort where you're constantly A/B testing and tweaking to see how the results tick up. And the only way you can do that is if it's tracked and if you're actually digging into the analytics and the results. So I can't hit that hard enough, and we can definitely have some Q&A around that. We live and breathe the virtual leasing data and analytics, and so a lot of insight there that we can talk through. Training. This is something we haven't talked through yet. For any of these efforts to be consistent across your entire team, Train your teams on your strategies, train them and align them on your goals of your efforts, and make sure that everyone understands how this is going to integrate into their processes. If you have one person on the phone and they're very actively proposing, well, we have some great videos of these floor plans that I can send you to preview before you come visit in person, but leasing agent B is not doing that, then that's not a consistent experience from prospect to prospect through your leasing process. And so again, to prove the effectiveness and prove the ROI of these efforts, make sure that your team is trained, make sure that everyone is aligned on how you're doing these virtual leasing efforts, and that everyone is marching forward to the same beat of the same drum. That alignment is going to be super important from an experience standpoint, from a tracking standpoint, and that alignment more than anything will produce the results necessary. Run some contests. If after your training, you're still struggling to get engagement with that one leasing agent, or there's just a couple people on the team that haven't really dove in to use the live virtual tours or to send the 3D like you wanted, run a contest. We've seen a lot of effectiveness here. These contests can be how many leases are signed using your 3D tours or using a live video tour. It can be how many conversions did you get off your self-guided tours this month, or how many videos did you create and put into our video library. So many different contests that you can run. We have a lot of clients that run contests to really spur creativity around these. That self-guided tour option where I talked about the QR code and having videos on their tour path, that was spurred out of forcing and seeking creativity amongst their team. They had a whiteboarding session, and that was one of the ideas that came out of it. So get creative, have some fun with it. Virtual leasing doesn't have to be a drain. It doesn't have to be something that sucks time and energy out of your day-to-day efforts. You need to have fun with it. And if you're having fun with it, that's going to shine through to your prospects as well. So think about some contests. Think about making it fun and making it competitive. And finally, integrate, integrate, integrate. I've mentioned this probably just as much as the tracking and analytics, and it is related. So when it comes to your virtual leasing efforts, focus on things that are built for multifamily leasing and multifamily property management. I know there are a lot of options out there. With video, you can use iMovie, you can use the YouTube Creator app. You can buy your own 3D camera and do your own scans. There are so many options, but at the end of the day, if it's integrated and built for multifamily leasing, it's built off of years of research, of client feedback, of consumer feedback. It's built with your end results and your end goals in mind, and can ultimately save you so much time, energy, hassle, so many things in the process. So that is a plug to make sure that you're targeting built for multifamily systems. Not saying you can't have success just on a DIY method on your own, but at the end of the day, the simplicity and the ease to which you will find success in these virtual leasing efforts will be exponentially increased if it is built for and integrated into your systems. And that last little icon down there at the bottom, we all know about it, equal housing, fair housing. When it comes to your virtual leasing efforts, all of the Fair Housing Act still stands strong. And any advertisement of a dwelling should follow all the best practices for equal housing and ADA and all of that. So again, when we talk about integrate, when we talk about built for multifamily, those accessibility concerns, those equal housing concerns, showing the equal housing ADA logo and disclaimer consistently across all of your tours and experiences, those are all considerations that aren't going to factor into some of those DIY efforts. And so if you are going DIY, just consider all the considerations there when it comes to fair housing, equal housing, and all of that. Tips and tricks. All right, so speaking of QR codes, this is a QR code. If you want to see some examples of really high quality video tour experiences, pull out your phone, open the camera, and just hold it in front of the QR code. You'll see a little drop down at the top. You can just click that and it'll open a playlist of videos that you can click through, see a good sampling of just a variety of videos that teams have created transparently using the Realync app. But ultimately, look for inspiration. Look at what other teams are doing. Look at what you can emulate, what you can replicate. Virtual leasing has been around for a while. Realync, we've been around for 7 years now. And looking back 7 years ago, virtual leasing was not what it is today, but it's been around for a while. And so there's a lot of best practices, a lot of lessons learned and mistakes made by the industry leading up to this point. So don't feel like you have to recreate the wheel or that you're in it alone. Reach out to the industry. That is one of the things I love most about our industry is our collaboration. That's what's great about our apartment associations and events like this. Everyone's willing to collaborate. Yeah, there are comps. Yeah, you're fighting for the same leads sometimes, but we're all in it together. We're all here to provide housing for everyone. And so lean on each other. Look at what other teams are doing. Shop their self-guided tour experience, whatever works best for you, but do your research, ask some questions, and simply reach out. There's a lot of resources to help along the way. So all that being said, I know we're about 35 minutes in. I'll wrap up here in about 5 minutes, leave us ample time for Q&A. I know Nancy just posted. If you do have questions that have been popping up throughout the presentation, feel free to add those to the Q&A section and we'll answer them as they come through. But fraudulent applications, again, going back to it, integrated systems. One of the biggest ways that you can avoid fraudulent applications and bad leads coming through your virtual efforts, both marketing and your virtual leasing efforts, have it integrated. If you have all of your virtual leasing efforts integrated into your application process, integrated into your marketing efforts, and you're collecting information about that lead through every stage of the process, from marketing to inbound lead to tour number 1, tour number 2, whatever it is, having all of that information aggregated and centralized and pulled together, that is going to help you have the fullest picture and understanding of who that prospect is. And so collecting, aggregating, and analyzing the data about a prospect from very first interaction through the process, at every single interaction point and every single stage through the process, you technically should be collecting more and more data and insight about that person. And so have your systems integrated, have your processes integrated, and don't be afraid to push pause on something. If something doesn't smell right or feel right, go back into your system, look at what has been collected, look at what information you know about this person, but also look at what information you don't know. If they entered an email address, xyz@nothing.com, that's probably not a real lead. If someone actually wants to live in your community, they're going to submit a real email address, a real phone number, and they're going to have very thought out responses to everything that you've collected from them. So that's really twofold. One, have it integrated into your process, and two, have multiple touch points. Make sure that you are collecting information at every stage. Make sure on your website that your CTAs, your call to actions, are collecting the information that you want and need to verify and validate your leads. And same with your application process. But by the time it actually gets to the application process, you should have a very good picture that that person is going to be a good applicant for your community. Along with that, communicate abundantly, especially in this virtual world. With all of these virtual leasing efforts, communication is key. And if you try to push someone through the process to application as quick as possible with as few touch points as possible, you're likely going to have a higher percentage of fraudulent applications, simply because you collected less data and information. And if you're physically talking to someone, especially face-to-face, you're likely going to be able to sense how serious they are and what their true intentions are. So over communicate. It doesn't mean you have to be on the phone 8 different times with that person before they get to the application process, but don't lose that human element. Number 3, keep the human element. No one is a better judge of character and intent than us. Systems and processes can be fooled. People can fake certain things online, but if you're actually establishing that human connection with someone, unless they are just the best pretender and best at fooling and trying to pull a fast one, you're going to be able to sense something's off and you're going to be able to feel that out. And so even though we are talking about virtual leasing efforts and making the process more effective, more efficient, don't lose that human element. That's actually one of the most important things for getting that high lead to lease conversion rate with virtual leasing efforts is keeping the human involved. People like buying from other humans, whether they like it or not. I mean, you can look at the car buying process. There's Vroom, there's Carvana, there's all these dealerships now without the person involved. But what we're seeing in the transformation of those systems is increased human interaction. They tried to pull all human interaction out of the car buying process, but people still want to buy from a human and have certain questions answered and certain interactions. And so, especially when it comes to making sure that you're taking care of your team, taking care of your community, your residents, and validating and verifying your leads, try to keep that human element as part of the process. All right, summation. Did I say it enough? Integrate and track? I think I said it enough. Make sure you're integrated. Make sure you're tracking your efforts. Try not to have one-offs and have your team doing 20 different things for your virtual leasing efforts. Focus, be concise, be dedicated on this is how we're doing 3D. This is how we're doing live and pre-recorded video. This is how we're doing our self-guided tours. Be methodical, there's the word, be methodical about it, and then train your teams effectively to follow that process, to be all moving in the same direction and providing a consistent experience. And then at the end of the day, stay human. Zoom fatigue is a real thing. People are tired of it. There have been so many Zoom meetings in 2020. And so for your leasing process to stand out, stay human. One of the biggest things that makes your property special is you. It's your team, and you impact the sentiment, the feeling, the attitude, and just so much of what it will mean to live in that community. So make sure your team shines through in all of these efforts and don't lose that. Again, people like conversing, people like interacting, and no 2 prospects are going to be the same. They're going to have different questions. They're going to want to see different things. So make sure you have the flexibility in your process to still cater the experience to the individual. Don't lose that. Don't lose the human element, and you will find success in your virtual leasing efforts. So I know I flew through a lot of information really fast. This is such a big topic and so much that goes into it. So we do have some pretty good time left. I thought I would do worse than that. So 17 minutes is pretty good. Any and all questions, Nancy and I are here to field them for you.
Thank you, Matt, for an excellent presentation. That was really great. I have a question, and hopefully there will be some others. If you have some questions for Matt, please post them in the Q&A. You talked about tracking a lot, yes. But at the same time, we want to make the experience kind of seamless. You don't want to have to make people create an account and all of that. So how is the tracking, how does that work without making it a pain for people to experience the community?
Yeah, absolutely. Good question. And that's where having your marketing processes integrated with your leasing processes, integrated with your full top to bottom resident lifecycle is super important. So ultimately at the very top of the funnel, when a lead comes into your system, they should be realistically submitting name, and contact information. And at the end of the day, that's all you need to track someone through the entire experience. And so you can take a lead that submitted their information on your website and track that email address and their name through, because their email address will be an identifier, and it's an easy identifier. So tagging that to them and then making sure that if I'm sending videos or I'm hosting a live video tour for that person, if it's a live video tour and you have the proper platform for hosting live video tours, send them an invite to that tour to their email address. Same with the videos. If you're sending someone 5 pre-recorded videos to look at your available units, send it to their email address. And if they're doing a self-guided tour, make sure that you're logging them in the system under that email address. And so consistency of data is ultimately super important on that tracking. And that's where the integrations make it super seamless, super easy. Because I know if I'm doing anything with Matt Weirich and I'm pulling it from my lead management system and pulling that data into whatever system I'm using, it's going to be consistent. And again, things built for multifamily, like Realync when it comes to video leasing, all the activities are automatically logged on the guest card. So when you send videos or host a live tour using Realync, it automatically logs that on the guest card as an activity. So you have that built-in tracking and audit trail.
Gotcha. Elaine would like to know, how are companies addressing the security challenges with true self-guided tours?
Ooh, throwing me a hard one, Elaine. Self-guided tours are a bit outside my purview, but ultimately what we're seeing is the check-in process being the key barrier. So when it comes to the security of monitoring who you're letting into your community, still forcing some sort of upfront check-in process, whether it's an online check-in process where they submit driver's license information, key background info like that, or having them physically stop by the leasing office and then going out and taking the tour themselves. That first barrier to entry is the single most important before you let someone onto the property. But there are a lot of very smart self-guided tour systems out there that will actually track people through the community. They can use, they can use beacon technology. They can use all sorts of things to track where that person is in the property and see where they're going, what they're stepping into, what they're experiencing. If you have smart locks and smart access and things like that, you can actually give someone a controlled key card that only works for certain aspects of the community. So a lot of different ways to really be smart about it and make sure that you're securing your property for your residents and not letting just anyone go through it. And so we have seen a lot of do-it-yourself efforts on the self-guided tour side of things, but I think people more and more are starting to lean towards an actual formal system for it to make sure that they have that tracking on the front end and make sure that they're really keeping that security in mind.
Okay, while we're waiting for any other questions to come in, I just want to give Realync a plug for their booth in the exhibit hall. Please come tomorrow and visit with Matt. You can go in and reserve a chat if you'd like for tomorrow, so you make sure you get some time with him. And also mentioned earlier was Yardi and Entrada. They're also in the exhibit hall. So make some appointments and make sure you stop by. We've got some other really great presentations this afternoon, and as well as tomorrow. Tomorrow we have 4 product demonstrations, one by commercial image photography that might be of interest to you all, about virtual staging for your tours. So that's going to be really interesting. And there's 3 other product demos as well. There's the yoga class again and the dance room, which was wild today. So, and of course there's the passport to prizes. So come back, make sure you come back tomorrow and participate in the scavenger hunt for a chance to win $10,000. I mean, excuse me, $5,000, plus some other really great prizes we have. So make sure you participate in that. Zach says, when it comes down to FaceTime, I've been giving out my number like crazy. How do I politely let future residents know that they need to stop texting, calling my personal number? Change
That
it.
block them, maybe. Yeah, no, that is a super tough one, and that is one of the number one issues and complaints that we hear about teams that are using FaceTime on their personal devices. And so that definitely goes back to having a platform for your live virtual tours. Realync doesn't give out personal numbers. Even using something like Zoom doesn't give out personal numbers. And so I understand the simplicity of FaceTime, and people are so used to it and so comfortable with it. But if you do not have a company provided iPhone or iPad where it isn't your personal number, then our biggest recommendation is to have a system, have a live streaming platform and technology that removes your personal number from the equation. And yeah, I mean, when it comes to letting the residents down to stop calling and texting, I would just push them towards, hey, can you email me? Here's my inbox, or hey, here's our company line. I'm out of office, unavailable, but you can reach my team here. I experienced that a lot. In growing my business over time, I was the point of contact for a lot of our clients, and now we have a large client success team to help them with their tech issues and all of that. And I still get the outreach, and so there's only so much you can do on that front. But obviously, yeah, point them, redirect them. If they are not an existing resident and potentially will not become a resident at any point in the future, yeah, maybe go ahead and block that number. But personal preference and whatever works best for you, Zach. Yeah, that can be quite the annoyance, especially when you're out of office and not actively trying to close deals with them.
Right. Well, I don't see any other questions coming in. So I will say thank you again very much, Matt, and appreciate your time today. And for all of you that attended today, thank you very much. And we'll call it a day.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Nancy. Love what the PM Expo is doing, and excited for a full day of exhibiting virtually tomorrow. So
yeah, we are too. Thanks again.
thank you.